Do we get an attorney?
Okay. It is 6:01. Today is August 16th, 2023, and we have the Board of Directors of Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1, and we do have a quorum. Director Hunter is not here, and we will go, this is a special session. We'll go right to executive session. Man, okay. Pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Open Meetings Act, the board may consult with its attorney in executive session on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meetings Act, or to seek advice of counsel on legal matters involving pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. A, consult with legal counsel regarding the amended and restated interlocal cooperation agreement for administration of fire protection between the district and the town of Trophy Club, and seek legal advice regarding potential renewal, termination, modification, or replacement thereof. Again, it is now 6:02, and we'll move to executive session. Okay, it is, we'll call it 7:57, where it came out of executive session, back into regular session. And I just want to note that Director Hunter did join us at the beginning of the executive session. She was there for the full term of it. And we have a full quorum at this time. Okay. We're on agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action regarding amended and related interlocal cooperation agreement for administration of fire protection services with the town of Trophy Club, and we're taking no action on that. Is that correct? Okay, so no action on agenda item 2. We're at 3. Discussion and possible action regarding fiscal year 2024 fire department draft budget. Do we have any opening comments on that? Or, Alan, did you want to address it?
Well, the reason for this, if you all recall, next week we need to set tax rates for our upcoming budget year. And in order to set the tax rates and following the communication during...
Is the microphones on?
Yes.
Because usually I can hear you a lot louder than that.
Jacob, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Allow you echo.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
I just wasn't talking into him. During the budget workshop meeting, there was some clear direction on the fact that the board was not comfortable with raising taxes. And so what we did is we went back and modified the budget to balance it and to show you all what kind of cash money it would take in order to fund it as presented right now, which includes all current employees of the fire department, including the newest addition, along with all of the associated merit increases provided during last year's budget. So a few things to point out. On the proceeds from sale of assets, we have an item coming up in the next meeting. We've had an opportunity to utilize another growing entity that would like to purchase our brush truck. In conversations with the fire chief, our brush truck is no longer needed, and they can cover service with other apparatus and mutual aid. So we're showing a dollar amount of prior year reserves in this because we're going to bring that item back to you all for consideration next week, and we'll explain that more. The other major change is prior year reserves. In order to balance this, we had to move money from somewhere, and so we've taken $179,500 from fund balances, fire department fund balances, in order to make these dollar amounts work. After the budget workshop, we did communicate with the interim town manager the desire to better identify and narrow down year-end projections. We also asked them to cut expenses in this upcoming year wherever possible. And Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual overall budget increased by $5,000.
That is correct.
Okay. So what we need tonight is we need clarification. One, we understand the tax rate is to its maximum capacity according to what we're required or what we're allowed to assess. So what I need to know is what you all are willing to fund or not fund, or what direction you would like for us to proceed forward, so we can try to get these dollar amounts tightened up next week, really, is what we need to know. So I need to find out if you all have any comments. Also, during the week, we did provide additional backup that you all requested. We provided you the information about the comp study that was done last year, the cost of living increases that they're proposing for this year's budget, along with their year-to-date expenses, justification for their fire operations budget line items, and there was also a question about what the district's cost of the newest firefighter was. We also have that broke out into a separate document. So with that, we're seeking direction in what your thoughts are.
Okay, just to be clear, the cost was the 54,761. That sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
The district's proportional share.
I can start at the top of the budget. I have some questions.
Sure.
Okay. The revenues from the town, assessment, emergency services, shows on this document $54,701. Get this up. This is decreased from the last one we had. It was $592,556. What's the reason for the decrease?
So the decrease comes from a calculation based on what the overall requirements is from taxes. We are pulling over the 179,500 out of taxes, therefore the decrease comes out of that. So it is a proportional share based on property valuations of taxes.
So you have decreased the amount coming from taxes because you brought in cash reserves?
Because the tax requirements are going down,
Okay,
therefore
tax
that goes down.
Okay, so
Right.
if you had not brought that in from reserves, what would the proposed amount be from taxes?
So it depends if the board would be willing to go over the voter approved rate.
No.
Then this would have to come from another entity or from so if it came from the town, it would be the same situation. If the town funded the 179,500, it would still offset, our taxes would go down, the PID's portion would go down, and then they would fund the 179,500.
The original
Okay, but-
the original budget that you saw, we just plugged in the proportional share based off of the values.
Okay, so ours, I see ours also went down. My point is, why not leave the tax revenues where they were at? What change do you bring across rather than the 100, where did it go? 179,500. So if they stayed back where they were, how much do you bring across? You don't bring across 179.5, you bring across a lower amount. What's the lower amount?
Problem with that, once you start, if you change the assessment back to where it was, the PID would then be paying a higher allocation from their original value. So you now are giving them a different tax rate. So their tax rate right now is set off based on, we need to collect X amount of revenue based on your property valuation. So what we're trying to do is, once we take that delta, that 179, we basically removing that revenue requirement out of the picture, and then we break it even based on what your allocation for your property valuations are.
Okay, so I'm not going to say why would we do that, because it seems to me that we are in the process of holding our revenue right at the top at the 3.5%. Why are we not expecting the same thing from the other entities at the table?
Because that 179,500 that were proportionally coming out of the fund balance also came from the PID assessment. Remember, this was a fund balance carried over from all collected revenue, which was also paid in proportion over the years
Okay,
of revenue coming in from the fee of the PID and taxes coming in from the district.
okay, but in the sense of maintaining that balance, rather than expending that balance, why would you not leave it the way it was calculated the first time?
Because you change the allocation. You change the percentage that is their proportional share.
You'd essentially be charging them more taxes than the
Percentage-wise, you're charging them
percentage
more.
value that they should be paying. So if you recall back in the budget workshop meeting, we talked about how you make up that loss of revenue. You either increase taxes or you cut expenses, or you come from a different fund, which is what we have here today.
Will we still be, on our equation, will we still be doing the 3.5%?
Yes, we have this dollar amount all the way to the maximum allowable amount.
Okay. I want to go down and talk, if anybody else have anything on revenues? No. We'll talk about salaries. Salaries regular. We had an entry for this, when we passed the budget last year, we passed a budget with $716,522. The town, contrary to our agreement, passed an amendment to the budget, increasing that amount of salaries to $745,734. I didn't agree to that. Never heard about it. The next thing that happens is we have a projection on this regular salary line for this year of $867,427. Now that's up roughly $150,000 in a single year for salaries that's shown. And then we have an amount requested for the next fiscal year of $950,494. That's roughly a 32%, 32.65 something percent increase in 1 year. I understand that there's been an employee added that was added once again without consultation with the MUD. I personally don't see the necessity. I haven't seen a necessity put forth, advocated, demonstrated a requirement for that additional employee. I have heard the town may be interested in adding 3 additional employees. I, once again, have not seen, I understand a want, I haven't seen a need demonstrated. So I'm looking at this budget of salaries, and I have said very clearly on more than one occasion, I believe in taking care of the employees. Now, my understanding, and I don't know what's in these numbers, quite frankly. I don't know what's in those salary numbers based on the information that I have been given. And here's the way I look at this. I look at we've got a 4.7% cost of living over the last year. That's what the MUD used. So if the projection is to give the employees a 4% pay raise, the fire employees a 4% pay raise, in my book, you're actually giving them a 0.7% pay cut when it comes to cost of living for calculation purposes. So I take my 4.7%, multiply it out times the 116, and I come out with $750,000, rough numbers. And it shows an increase from that $750,000 to the $590 of $200,000. And some additional dollars, but basically $200,000, that I can't tell anybody where it's coming from. I have no understanding at all on where those dollars are driven by. So I take the next number across the page there, which was the amended budget that once again the MUD knew nothing about, which went to 475, 700,000 roughly. Multiply that by the 4.7%, I come up with 780 and some change. Which means and when I subtract that off the 950, I have $169,700 that I can't justify to anybody. I have no idea where it came from. So then we got this page that has, the cost of living increase. It shows 4%, and we also received one that had a comparison schedule or a survey that was done with several cities. I don't know, 10, 12 cities, something like that. And a lot of fine print. Blow it up, and you see a minimum, a mid, and a maximum salary range for positions, administrative assistant, senior administrative assistant, firefighters, both EMT and
Never
paramedic,
mind, never mind, thanks, Chief.
as well as driver,
Looks
engineer,
good.
fire captain, deputy fire chief, marshal, and fire chief. So we've got all of this fine data that has been gathered. And I say fine, but I'm going to use that term loosely, because if I can blow this up, there are some numbers in here that I have questions about. I don't know who did the survey. I don't know whether he hired somebody to do it or exactly what, but I would really like to understand how the South Lake driver engineer has a maximum salary of $405,196. I don't understand how South Lake is paying somebody, an individual, $405,000 to be a driver engineer. It's in the data. So my next point about this data is we have a minimum, we have a mid, and we have max. That's fine on the page 2, but you take those numbers and you go to the top, which is Trophy Club's FY 2022-2023 pay plan and a proposed 50% percentile increase, or 50% percentile. But you go back down to the page 2 and it talks about a 50% percentile. There's a problem. None of the numbers on the bottom of the page, page 2, match the numbers on the top page. My question is, why? Why? How? Well, I have a salary number here on a budget. I need to know how you got to that salary number, that lump sum, on a budget. I need to understand what your pay proposal is. Please, help me.
Director Rose, I don't believe I have the same document that you're looking at, and so but I can tell you that that information is going to have to come from April Duvall, our finance director, our human resources director, Denise DePrado, and Patrick Arata, our town manager.
I'm
I
thinking
do
that
not have that
405
answer
is a
for you.
mistake. It should be 105. I mean, it's obvious by looking at all the numbers and having
That's
the
what I'm thinking,
experience.
too.
And also dealing, in HR with comp plans, that's truly a mistake. It's not 405.
Well,
It's got to
I
be
agree.
105. So we don't need to hammer on that one.
No, but the point is, the data doesn't flow from page 2 to the top of the page. And you can't take the data from the top of the page and go to the budget and get a number even close to where we're at. It's like, okay, there is how much you have for salaries. It would be really nice to have a de-identified pay schedule that would explain, okay, employee A has got 5 years, he falls in this point in the pay plan, which raises a question. This pay plan has mid, midpoint, and max. How does an employee get from min to max? Is he hired at min, or is he hired in the midpoint? If he's got 8 years' experience, does he come in and go into it at this point, and then every year he gets like a longevity increase? How does this all work? This is smoke and mirrors to me.
Salary.com. You'll be able to get a lot of information off of there.
For
It's-
this?
Yeah, salary.com is great, and it covers the entire U.S., every city, every position.
Okay?
And I'm looking at this and being in the position I am in the corporate world. I'm going to go to the administrative assistant and the senior administrative assistant. I'm going to say for the max in Trophy Club, that seems fairly reasonable for a senior. But when I go up, if Dallas was on here, much larger city, I totally get that. That max is going to be 3 figures. And I know that for a fact. With having the HR experience in dealing with comp, from what I'm looking at, minus the 405, that obviously is a mistake, these numbers look pretty darn close
Okay.
without sitting here going off of salary.com, because a lot of the corporations, that's one of the tools that they use for their comp plans. So I'm fine with what I'm looking at, except the 405.
Okay, so my point is the data's been provided. Granted, it may be a typo. I suspect it's a typo. But somebody should have looked at this 12 times by now by the time I got it at my desk. But anyway.
Nobody's perfect, Bill,
Yeah.
not even you.
But I can't get those numbers from the bottom to the top of the page. And once I get them to the top of the page, I then can't take that information and go into the salary line item, that single number, and for those increases, and explain to anyone sitting across the table from me how it got there. All I know is that we've added, I know that I expect to do a 4.7% cost of living increase. That's what I expect. That number is something that raises a pay scale chart like what you're looking at page 1. Every year, that number goes up by the cost of living. But the problem I have, once again, is I can't get from this page to a random number, from my perspective, that was generated. It's probably not random. Somebody can probably explain why that number in the salary range is what it is and why those increases were there. I'm not getting that explanation. And like I said, personally, I'm not going to be in favor of funding this additional person from the MUD side of the perspective. And so I'm going to be looking at reducing the budget at a minimum by that much, by the individual cost, the $52,000, which in my mind should then decrease the amount that we're bringing across that 179 by $52,000.
And my understanding is we're going to be voting on this because it currently sits at a tie, because I was not here, present. That's my understanding.
That would be correct.
Carry on.
Yeah, we're going to vote on this budget as it was submitted here for approval. So whichever way the vote goes, that's fine.
That budget or approval would include an additional fire personnel.
Yeah, as it's stated. I mean,
Okay.
it's a salary.
I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Ben?
Yeah, regarding the comparative study, I think it helped us a lot this year compared to last year. The one thing I have a problem with is the midpoint. I don't understand why the consultant used midpoint rather than median or mean and standard deviation. Those numbers are far more meaningful than a midpoint between two ranges.
Concur.
Pardon me?
I concur.
Good. The second thing I'd say is regarding governance. Let's assume that we did not have the fire services budget that we do, the responsibility for it, and that it all existed in the town. Chief Wise would come up with justification for additional personnel or new equipment or high-tech fire suppression devices, and he'd go to the town manager, probably along with the chief of police, and the town manager would put the case together, get on the agenda, the council would approve it, and it would be over with. I think we have a governance issue when this gets kicked over to us and we have this kind of a discussion. I, for one, am not an expert on fire suppression or the equipment that best serves our community. Regarding the approval for an additional firefighter, I'm going to go with the town's wish here and support payment of that. Thank you.
Doug?
I'm with Ben as far as it goes with what the chief has asked for, what the town has asked for. This is an additional person, staff person, additional firefighter. I'm going to go with that.
Anything else in the budget?
I can't change my position. Yeah, the budget, I'm still looking at numbers.
Anything else? No. Tracy?
Chief, I'm really glad that, and Ben, I'm so sorry, I'm not going against you on anything, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm really happy that the midpoint salary pay range is included, because it does, you know, if your minimum pay range is going to be your someone bringing in maybe 1-2 year experience, and your max is definitely going to be over 10 years, 10 plus years. With your midpoint, maybe around 4, 5, 6. So I'm happy that midpoint range was included, and I fully understand what I'm looking at here from with my corporate experience. I understand the second page, and I truly appreciate the in-depth amount with all the cities, towns that was included. I mean, that's quite helpful when I was reviewing the different positions. My position regarding this budget and the additional personnel, but before I say that, I heard Bill make a comment that you wanted to bring in 3 additional. I know right now it's only 1, so I get that. 3 additional personnel. What positions are you thinking about?
Firefighters.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if it was anything else that was listed here. My reason for asking, let me finish,
Well,
please.
I just want to put something in. They were seeking a grant to offset that expense, correct?
Yes, sir. We're still waiting to hear back from
Yeah,
them.
so I just want to put out there, it'll be funded by a grant for 2 years,
3 years,
3 years.
Even better.
100%. Yeah. If
So I just have this question, because in here you have listed an administrative assistant and a senior administrative assistant. What is the purpose of both?
I don't know the exact difference between the two. You'd have to ask Denise DePrado, our Human Resources Director. But I can tell you that our senior administrative assistant we have is Tracy Canarum at the firehouse there. So I wish I could tell you the definition, but I just don't know it.
I would like for you to go research
Sure.
administrative assistants, executive assistants, and what we do. The community is amazing. Their swift thinking, their knowledge of the overall business is fantastic when you have a top-notch assistant, executive assistant, senior executive assistant. I think you would be, I'm going to get you a book. I know exactly which book to get you. And I think it will open your eyes to what the assistant can provide, because typically, even in corporations, most people don't know what they actually do. They are a ninja, a MacGyver, a Swiss Army knife. They are amazing, and they make magic happen. So I'm getting you a book. Anyways, all right, thank you for allowing me that. Going back to this budget, I'm in favor of this budget and adding an additional firefighter. That's my vote.
Okay, I have some questions. On the reimbursement for the firefighters and the pumper truck going out to West Texas, or was it Possum Kingdom, or?
Perryton in the
Okay.
Panhandle.
So when, is that going to offset some of these expenses in this current year, the 23, 24?
Yes, sir.
And how much are we projecting on that?
It's difficult to say. Tracy Kinnear, she's our senior administrative assistant. She's been working real hard on that through the grant portal for TDM. She's
Just
got
give me a
everything.
ballpark figure, I'm not going to hold you.
I couldn't tell you. I'd have to look at all of the.
100,000, or based on, what did we get for South Texas when we went down there for,
I can't tell you. I don't have those
you don't know
numbers.
what's in the books? Okay.
From the past
Not
deployments?
helping me out there, chief, come on.
Past deployments? No, sir.
Lie to me or something. Give me a-
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Let me just tell you this. We're going to get reimbursed for the use of the truck, the engine. We're going to get reimbursed for our fuel, for our mileage, for our food, our lodging, and the additional cost that we had for meals and things like that. Overtime that we paid those individuals to be there and work in that disaster situation, and we're going to get reimbursed for that and for the coverage that we had to provide at overtime rate for that position to be filled down here at the station. So all of that will be reimbursed. That's a significant cost. I just don't have that exact number. It's very hard to.
Obviously, the equipment reimbursement will come directly to the MUD since it was our equipment, correct?
I guess that's.
I would assume that. Is that right, Alan?
It depends on what the apparatus is. If it's the fire trucks specifically that there's reimbursement for an hourly rate just for the truck being there, that would be 100% revenue back to the district. But if it's a shared expense as part of the budgeting process, then it would be a split.
Okay. I'm going to do a comparison and go through what was presented to the council. It's from, and I hopefully this page came off the council, and I have what we had in our packet. The first one is the salary and the firefighter. I'm opposed to the firefighter, and the reason I'm opposed to it, because we went from 3, we need 4. We went to 4, we need 5. Went to 5, now we're going, well, we need 6. Where does it stop? Because we have, and I explained this last meeting, automatic aid, mutual aid. There's a fire in South Lake recently, 11 departments responded. That's like, it's great that they had that, 11 people, but, more than half were not needed, and they backed each other up. So you could have sent 3 people over there from Trophy Club, and the fire still would have had enough personnel. That's why I'm not for the 6th person.
With all due respect, Mr. President, how do you know what they need or what they don't need?
That's what I'm saying. It's nice they responded, but 11 for a house fire? Come on, they're stepping on each other's feet. You're not going to use all 11 departments. You have experience in fire, you know that?
I do. There's a 3-alarm fire, and we went to that.
Yeah, so you.
And every bit of those resources were used.
Okay, 3-alarm fire, which is pretty good sized fire, 11 departments, and they sent more than half of them back, like pretty much, right away.
And how do you know that?
Because I researched it and stuff.
Through-
So I'm
through
just
what?
saying that's the reason I don't think we have mutual aid, automatic aid with surrounding towns. Roanoke Fire Department, they have 4 people in each station. How they survive, it's amazing. We have 5 and 6, but Roanoke continues on. We used to work with 3. And, obviously we've grown, and 4,
Yeah.
then 5. It's just, I don't agree with having more than 5 right now. There's no justification. The town has not given us a realistic justification for that, and that's my personal thoughts, so I'm one person.
Oh, you should have seen the fire that was around the corner from my house. That happened, what, a year or two years ago? I'll tell you, they need more than 6 firefighters when there's a fire like that. But and I would also like to know, as the chief asked, you said you researched half the personnel being sent back. Exactly where did you get that information?
From South Lake.
Someone
you're
on
saying
council in South Lake?
No, from the
Someone
fire
from the fire
department.
department?
Yeah. But you mentioned you had a house fire. Was there mutual aid? It had to be an automatic aid. So Trophy Club wasn't the only one responding to that fire. If you remember, a couple years back, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we had 2 fires at the same time in the pit. We had more than enough equipment. We had Flower Mountain respond, we had South Lake respond, we had Roanoke, we had Westlake, we had
Only Trophy
North
Club
Lake.
was there because I
No, it
walked-
wasn't?
Yes, it was, because I saw it with my own eyes.
I was
Around
there
the
too.
corner from
Well,
my
okay,
house?
we're not, no, around the corner from your house.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 3 or 4 years ago when we
Okay.
had 2 fires, when Lasky was still here. We had plenty of coverage. But I don't know about the one, I wasn't there, but I'll take your word. But anyway.
I'm in favor, just so
Yeah,
you know.
we already know that, but I'm entitled to my, personal feelings, you're entitled to yours, so. Okay, moving on, we have
Can
the
I-
part-time. You have 0 for proposed budget for part-time, but then you have overtime that has increased considerably, or actually went down. Is there a reason why there's $0 in overtime in the fiscal year 2024?
Proposed overtime is 0?
I see
That's-
$1,897.
Well, my bad. I'm on merits. I skipped a line. Merits, there's $0. But we had 29 estimated in 2023. In 2021, we had 49,000. Is there a reason that has 0?
I don't put those numbers together, sir. That's all.
So you don't do the budget for the fire department or have a say in it?
I do the operational piece of it. I don't do the salaries, the part-times, the merits, the overtime, the certifications,
just-
pay that. That all comes from April Duval, which is our finance manager, our town manager, and our human resource director. They do all of the insurance, social security, taxes. They do every bit of that. They give me those numbers, and the operational piece is what I go to them and have a budget meeting with. So I'd be happy to explain any of that to you.
Okay, so it's pretty much safe to say that that merit is an error, and something might be placed in there, right? Because people get merits every year, right?
Yes, sir.
It is
Okay.
my understanding that the marriage got moved into the salaries.
It got combined in salary?
Correct.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
If you look on the year-to-date expenses, you can see that period activity for merits is 0, but you also can see that the salaries has increased. So that may be the
I thought the
justification.
salaries increased because of the 6th person, but.
Well, I think
that's-
it did because of the 6th person, but also because of the cost of living adjustments that was approved by town council mid-year. That's my understanding as well.
Okay, let's move on to overtime. Overtime went down, projected or estimated is 142. I suspect that's because of the people that went out west, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll just skip over that. We have projected 40,303. 2021, we had 115. 2022, actual was 128, and I suspect that's because they responded to the South help, right? Is that your guess, or?
That was before I got here, so I don't know that, sir.
Okay, next one is dental insurance. It went from 513, 2022 to 498, and now we have 1980. Again, out of your league, right? Okay.
Denise DePrado, Human Resources Director, sir.
Yeah, I just think 1980 from estimated 592, it matches the prior years, and then they jumped to 1980, was a little different. Workman's comp, we already know about that. We got behind on workman's comp and it's catch-up, right? We talked about that last time. Tuition reimbursement went from 5,000 in 21 to 4,000 in 22, and now we're estimated in 23 is 2,300, but we have projected 7,000. And that's out of your league too, right? That's,
We have 3 employees that are requesting tuition reimbursement,
okay.
and the max on that, yeah.
Do you know what we had this current year?
What we have left,
No, how many people requested reimbursement?
I know our fire marshal did, I believe it's just 1, yes, sir, is our fire marshal.
It went up about $4,600, more than double. So I was just wondering why it went up that high. Okay, professional outside services is pretty much, what do we do on outside services on that for the?
Professional outside services, grant writing, leadership classes, lab testing for any exposures or fire investigations and things like that.
Okay, the actual in 2022 was 40,504. In 21 it was 1567, quite a jump. And projected this year is more in line with what the prior years. And you wouldn't have any idea what 2022, right?
40,000 for that?
40,000. That was
40?
That was due to a interim fire chief.
Excuse me?
Oh,
Due to
professional
interim fire chief.
Professional outside services, SGR hired David.
Okay, when we had the
Jones,
temporary.
Temporary
Okay.
fire chief, that's what it was.
Thanks again,
Yes, sir.
Stephen. That's why we got Stephen. Always has the answers, right?
Does.
Okay, next one is physicals and testing. You have $7,000 allocated, and I assume it came from somewhere else because there's no numbers in 21 or 22.
Annual health assessments and background checks,
No, this is physical/testing.
52,290.
This is the new item that was added this year, that was caught this last meeting that you guys added this year?
Correct. Is that the one where the pre-employment change versus
Yeah, whatever.
I think that's what you explained to me.
moved it?
It's a new line item that was added this year.
So it's a new line item?
That's correct. So there's no history for this at all?
What's the explanation? Just new hires or?
No, not new hires. This is as far as requirements for testing.
Annual health assessments for the firefighters,
Okay.
cancer screening, cardiac.
And we
It's
didn't
an
have
annual-
those fees last year?
Yes, sir, we did. We used a company called On Duty Health. This year, we're doing Frontline Mobile.
I believe they
So-
were in a different line item last year. So I believe they were in a different line item last year.
Combined with something else.
So now they're in their own separate line items, physicals and testing.
What was it called last year? Because it would be on
I
the 21.
cannot tell you that.
It almost looks like maybe dues and membership, because that number dropped drastically.
What was it under, Tracy?
Dues and memberships?
It shouldn't
yeah.
be in that.
Or it would have been under
no, that
pre-employment
one's actually
physicals/testing,
Employment, yep.
Reemployment.
because last year they used roughly $4,342.
Could be there.
I
It
think it's
just
a
looked odd that
combination.
there's $7,000 out there. Next one is printing. We had 280 in 21, we had 266, and this year we're projecting $1,100.
Okay. What we did was we took advertising and printing and we swapped them. Advertising, we had a reduction in advertising by using social media website. We look for alternatives instead of spending money like that. But we swapped advertising. So in other words, advertising went from 1,000 in 22-23 to 200 projected this year of 24 budget. So that's a reduction of $800. But what we figured out is that printing, we needed more of. So printing went from 300 of 23 up to 1,100. And that's annual report, business cards, forms, things like that. So
Okay, yeah.
essentially, it didn't change anything.
It
We
just
just
flipped.
swapped those two.
Yeah, okay, I see. The 200 and 1,100 is the
That's
same
right.
thing as 1,300 we had last time.
Correct.
Okay, the schools and training, we did actual of 11,449 in 2022 and 9,478, but we have 19,900 this year, and that matches what they amended in the last year for whatever reason, even though we aren't up to that amount yet. Is there people going through training or something, or schools?
Yes, sir. So we have two guys right now at the FRI conference. Actually,
Okay.
we went through some leadership training and stuff up there.
Okay, and electricity, 2022, 5530, actual in 2022, that was 2021, I just mentioned, 2022, we had 55,853, it's along the same lines, and then this year we have 8,400. Any reason why I went to 84 when we've been consistently around 55 to 58?
No, sir. I could tell you right now that we're at 38% of our budget for electricity and 19% of our budget on water. And the next couple of months are going to be hot ones, and roughly doing about 1,000 a month. So we're going to get very close on both of those.
What are you at right now?
$3,211 left in the budget for electricity.
So you had,
And then we have about $800 left for water for the fiscal year.
what's the total? Do you have the total dollar amount that you've spent so far?
$51.88.
Okay, so 5188, and you got a couple
38%
more.
left.
Excuse me?
About 38% of the budget left for electricity.
So, and what you projected last year was 55,853, but it was amended to 8,400. So you think you're gonna reach to 8,400 in 2 or 3 months? You're only 38% of the 8,400 right now. Okay, moving, I just noted why it was so estimated, projected, all these things where it's over what we've been doing adds up. The other one is communications, we'll skip that one, it's staying on track. Building maintenance, we talked about the AC, and you expect another one to go out, Alan, is that right?
Well, we're hoping that we can make it through the year without, but there was one that we decided to go ahead and replace, and they also had numerous issues with door adjustments that had to be made, which is the reason for the current overrun.
Okay, vehicle maintenance, in 2022, we did 17,136, actual in 2022, 24,128, and you just mentioned getting rid of the brush truck, right?
That's correct.
And you have 49,029. Is there a reason you have a brand-new pumper truck, ladder truck's not that old? Is there a reason, or can that be cut down, or?
Yeah, so the city of Watauga is does their maintenance for the vehicles of the town, and there's a 20.17% increase for this next year's projected for them.
You also have a ladder truck that's a 2015, so we do pump testing, ladder testing. We have an AC unit that is leaking on there right now, so it's either repair or replace. That's and we're gonna try to use that money. Right now, it's at the shop to get all that fixed, so we're just gonna cut down what we see here, what's left over currently for this fiscal year. We replaced batteries. Tires seem to be in pretty decent shape, but they're gonna have to be replaced. Preventive maintenance service, things like that. We're going to try to extend the life of the truck, so that way we can maybe push that replacement a little bit further out with good maintenance and rotation. We've gotten real lucky this last year, so we got a new engine. We spent most of the time in that, and we went from Sid and Martin's, and we changed to in Denton, and we changed to Watauga, so they opened up their fleet center, and we got on board with them. They are cheaper, even despite the 20% increase. They're still a lot cheaper than up north in Denton. So we're doing really well, but I'm just letting you know that a ladder truck, a 2015 ladder truck, we're going to start seeing some of those replacements or the maintenance costs go up on those things. So I think we're right on track with that budget projection of that. And so you may not see it right now, but I think you will eventually. And my experience is that 10 to 12 year mark you start really seeing problems with the ladders and the outriggers and the pulleys and things, and that's not cheap.
Okay, the printer supplies went from 1,021 to 1,371.22. Now it's at 2,600, and we only projected 1,600 last year.
The increased cost for the color copier cartridges, each one of those, there's like 3 of them, they're like $250 each. Obviously, paper, other printer cartridges, things like that. And then there's just an increase in costs in general, or inflation.
Safety equipment, protective clothing, did 89.70 in 21, 22 you did 16.026, and now you got 40,000 projected.
Second set of PPE for all the firefighters, because it's recommended. That's what we talked about earlier, was we said, you know, when they catch a fire or they have some sort of an incident, or even if they have to send their gear out for cleaning, repair, or an inspection, they got to wear something else. So we don't want to put them in dirty gear and things like that.
I thought
So-
they already had two sets. When I was on the mud way back when, I think Danny Thomas suggested that they have 2 sets.
No, sir.
So we only have 1 set now?
Yes, sir. Some have 2 sets. We have, Captain Sipes runs that program, and I've been working with him, and we're getting everybody in a second set of gear, make sure we have a second set of gear. And then you also got to remember, we have part-time personnel, so we have to have those gear, put them in the set. We do not get them a second set. We just give them 1 set because of their limited work times. But we have some extra set of gear. So for instance, if one firefighter is working, we have a fire, and he needs to get out of that gear, we have some extra sets that they can, you know, fit into. Not ideal, because it's not perfectly fitted for them, and it's not their gear, but it'll work probably for the rest of the shift. But all full-time employees are going to have 2 sets of gear. Remember, these things expire. They need repair, and they need cleaning. So that's what that program is all about.
Okay, so you mentioned that earlier we have a pool of 12 part-time?
Yes, sir.
So we pay 12 people outfits, fire gear?
Yes, sir.
How much is a set of gear?
From head to toe, helmet, hoods, gloves, coat, pants, boots, roughly 4,500.
And if the part-time person lasts maybe 2 months, do we get reimbursed any money for that, or what happens to the gear?
What happens to the gear? Well, we try to get another part-time individual in there, and, you know.
So when you do the interview, you kind of tell them, get on the scale and
Right.
all that?
Fit in, see
Okay.
if you can fit in this gear. Yes, sir. Believe it or not, if it fits well, then we're okay with that. We're stewards of the, you know, the taxpayer dollar and stuff, so we're trying to make the program work and do it the best we can. We're just not buying everybody 2 sets of gear for the, you know, for the sake of it. We understand what we have with the part-time individuals. They're of value to the organization, but they also deserve to have some gear that fits, it's clean, and it passes inspection.
How long does the gear last for?
Well, the manufacturer says 10 years, but again, it gets dirty, it gets beat up, it gets torn, it can rip. It can get to a certain point where you need to replace it, repair it or replace it. And keep in mind that one bad incident, hazmat or something like that we get into, can take out an entire crew's set of gear. So if you had 3 or 4 individuals, that's 3 or 4 individuals' gear that could just be completely going out of service. So that's the potential. We try to do our best to stay out of those situations, but it's out there. So, but I feel right now that we do have enough funding and enough to meet the needs of the program, for sure.
Okay, the reason I asked the life and on the truck too is because it has nothing to do with this year's budget, but the projected for like 2025 and 2026, you have the same 49 or 50,000 for maintenance. Well, if you get the ladder truck, it's not going to cost 49 or 50 every year to maintain. If it is, you need to get rid of it. Same with the equipment. You have another 40,800 next year, 41,616. Well, if the fire equipment is going to last 10 years, then why is the future year projected? Again, it has nothing to do with this budget. I'm just looking at the future projected numbers that are like pie in the sky numbers to me.
Sure.
But-
And just because we have a brand-new engine, which is great, does it, and it's under warranty for most of the work, if it does this, if something does happen to it, it's great, but it still takes, it needs a pump test on an annual basis, it needs preventive maintenance, and that's several $1,000s just to do that.
But I'm big, take the history too. In the past, we didn't spend anywhere close to those numbers, but the justification for new tires on the ladder truck and stuff, I can understand that, but for future years, I'd have to see it to believe it, but I'm not going to get into that. Small equipment. You had 2021 pay $161. 2022 was $47.05. And then they amended the budget for whatever reason to $95.42, and we went back to $49.50 for this proposed.
The amendment was for automated external defibrillators, those little defibrillators out there, that's what
Yep.
those were, sir. You got
Hopefully I
three of
don't-
them. You got one down at the plant, you got one in the barn out back, and you got one here in your
Okay.
lobby.
So I know where to go.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had. Sorry it took so much time. Anybody else have any more comments?
No, you got that off the town website?
Yeah.
Okay,
in the
thanks,
Proposed budget
thanks.
and stuff. Okay. Anyone? Where's my agenda? I had it here. Let me have yours again. I just put it here, I lost it. Okay, so there's no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion to, unless Stephen or Alan, you have anything? You want to add anything, Chief?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. Lori, you got anything?
No,
Okay.
not today.
Okay. Okay, we're on agenda item number 3, discussion possible action regarding fiscal year 2024, Fire Department draft budget, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the fiscal year 2024 Fire Department draft budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Brewster. We have a second by Director Hunter. And any further discussion? Okay, I just want to say my big problem, I don't have any problem with, the majority of them, the blanks and stuff. I think there was explanation for it, but I just can't, for the people I represent, think that we need a 6th firefighter. I haven't seen justification for it yet, based on the mutual aid and automatic aid, so that's my 2 cents. Okay, you have anything?
I have one comment. I also am not going to be able to support the budget. I see absolutely no flow-through on the salary section justifying the current amounts.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? Okay, we're going to call for a vote. All in favor of, this is all in favor of passing the budget, show of hands. Okay, I have Vice President Brewster, Secretary Treasurer Harper, and Director Hunter for, all opposed. I have Director Rose and myself opposing it, so it passes 3-2. Okay? Without anything else, we don't need to talk about future meetings on this since it's a special session. Okay, I will call the meeting to adjourn at, we'll say, 8:55.